Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Newington Board of Education to order for February 12th, 2005. The time is 7:02. Please rise for the pledge.
I knew that was coming. That's why I stayed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deb, would you please call the roll?
Mary Bethra.
Here.
Brittany Carr. Don Halloran.
Here.
He's online.
Anthony Nealon.
Here.
Timothy Newton.
Here.
Amy Parati.
Here.
Sam Sharma.
Here.
Jessica Weaver.
Here.
Anastasia Yap. I have Miss Carr and Miss Yap absent.
Brittany sent me a text. She's on the list.
Brittany's on the right. Thank you. All right, tonight we have a school counseling week recognition.
Corn is here.
Mr. Korn is here for a second night this week. Fantastic. Resolution honoring Newington school counselors, February 12th, 2025. Whereas the Newington public school system is committed to honoring its school counselors and recognizing their contributions to the educational system and their tremendous impact in helping students reach their full potential. And whereas the Newington school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas the Newington school counselors are actively engaged in a partnership with parents for focusing on positive ways to enhance students' academic, career, and social emotional development, and working with teachers and other educators to provide an educational system where students can realize their potential and set healthy, realistic, and optimistic aspirations for themselves. And whereas the Newington school counselors are integral to student success and help to increase student achievement and provide a much needed resource for students, parents, teachers, and administrators. And whereas it is the desire of the Board of Education that school counselors should be made aware of their appreciation. We do hereby proclaim Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 as Newington School Counselors Appreciation Day. Therefore, be it resolved that we urge all the citizens of our community to join with us in actively expressing gratitude to our school counselors who represent an investment in excellence in our community. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Newington Board of Education is directed to spread this resolution upon the minutes of this meeting and to provide a suitable copy for presentation. Mr. Korn, would you like to come up and accept this resolution?
Okay.
Doug's going to take our picture.
Oh, he's gonna
Doug's
take
going to take our picture.
I just want to say, on behalf of the school counseling department, thank you so much for this recognition. It means a lot. I would like to think that school counselors sometimes are those unsung heroes for our students and for even our staff these days. So I know you have a long meeting ahead of you, so I just want to say thank you so much for this recognition. Thank you.
I'll open it up to board comments. Ms. Weaver.
Got to give a shout out to our counselors. And I think I like to emphasize this every year, but I think what's so important is that role has really changed, I think, than what people may have perceived back in even just a decade ago of the need and the demand on our counselors. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's not just, one thing that is done for our students. It's picking classes. It's being there for our students on a day and out. And I know that there's been, quote, lines out the door of our counseling office. So thank you for the responding to the increased demands. I remember very well how COVID was when we were here and getting us through that. I just don't want that to be discounted ever. That we're still here and you're still here for our students every single day. I know this isn't the Everyday Hero Award, but you're one of the everyday heroes. So thank you to your whole staff.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll say, just kind of to echo what Jessica said, that the job really has changed. Obviously now is course selection for the high school, so I know they're very, very busy now, but just in general, there's a great need for our counselors and they're doing a lot for our students. We have, social worker psychologists, but our counselors are also there every day, follow the students through their entire journey at the high school and middle school for 3 years. So definitely grateful for all they do for our students. So thank you. All right. It is now time for public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. If you're in the room, you can raise your hand. Don't see anyone, or online. Seeing none. We'll move on to new business. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. So we have the rest of our instructional programs to review in the budget book, and Dr. Brummett, I believe, has some answers from the questions that we had 2 days ago.
So would you let me do that first? Would that be helpful? All right, so we received questions from the board, both the night of the board meeting and then a few subsequent follow-up questions. So what I'm doing is adding them at the very end of the presentation that everyone has. So it updates in real time. And special thanks to Lou and Kristen and Steve and everyone that helped me answer all these questions. Some of them were a bit of research involved, but I do appreciate the time people took. Karen also did a very last minute research on reading. So these questions were thoroughly vetted. So let me get to the right tab here. There it is. So we did already review the question that was posed during public comment on February 5th about open choice students. The vast majority of our ML students are not open choice. 92% are Newington residents. I did also put in a lengthy link to the bus fleet question that was posed by a citizen. The takeaway from that is there was a question about how many buses were ordered in the same year. And the board, I think, is aware of this from our very lengthy presentation the other evening, that buses right now are on a substantial lead time to order. So we had buses typically take well over a year to come in. And then sometimes there are things that need to be installed on them that take time as well, because getting parts is just as challenging as the full bus. So buses that were ordered in 23 come in 24. Some of them are sitting right now in DACO waiting for installation of parts. And then the ones that were ordered this past spring are not here yet. So bus lead time is very long, and then even parts are as long. So that the public comment was about that, why would you order 7 at a time? And they actually were parsed out over 2 orders. I'm trying to think of anything. The individual also had some questions about the Nor'easter Academy. The board posed question about whether we'd know about the grant before the budget season closed, and right now we probably won't. It's likely to be awarded sometime in July. I believe I announced at the beginning of the last meeting that the Effective School Solutions budget, they finally sent us an invoice and it came in $50,000 lower than what we had budgeted. So we'd recommend a $50,000 reduction on that line. And there was a lengthy discussion the other night about technology. So I have a lot of updates there. We went and polled, or I should say our technology team polled numerous districts as to what they charge for Chromebook insurance. And as you can see, we're one of the higher ones. We're actually not the highest, the only one higher than us is Montville. And we only allow our folks to have 1 claim per year. After that, they have to pay. So this is just, at this point, looking at this list, we're already one of the highest, so I'm not sure raising it would be advisable. But I have more information too, and all this is linked to your presentation. So if you want to do a little more research on your own, these are districts that are similar to us in terms of their ability to pay, so on and so forth. But there was quite a few other questions about that. Here's our Chromebook insurance document. The board expressed an interest in reviewing that. This is what parents get. We are in the process of revising it. We could not give them more than one shot at it. So we did mention, I think Jay Salerno mentioned that the first incident's not charged against their insurance. We could, stop that and say your first incident is charged against insurance regardless. We also discussed, and the board certainly could offer their opinion on this, is we've got about 65% of our students participating in the insurance program, which is higher than average, higher than it's been historically. But we think the ones that are not participating probably are those who have income challenges. So we wondered if we should do a sliding scale, which we would validate through research about their free reduced lunch status. And maybe that would get some of our other families to contribute $5 or $10, which could then up our pool to another $7,000 or $8,000. So that is one thing that we are contemplating. What the parents get clearly articulates the costs. We are going to update the replacement Chromebook costs because they're a little higher now, more in the $330 range. But all these other parts he'll update to be more in line with what our current charges are. And it also gets parents fully aware of what is covered and what is not. It also directs them to our acceptable use policies and procedures, so they understand it's the obligation of the student to take good care of their Chromebook. So that shouldn't be a surprise to families at all. So this is essentially what families sign off on every year. We also were asked to do a little research about how much money we might lose annually for people that leave the district and have unpaid fees. And for Chromebooks, we're estimating at about $1,500. I did speak with Ms. Tigno at the high school, and no one graduates unless they've paid off all their fees, and that would even include any senior activities. So the ultimate pay is before you graduate. So the real risk that we have is if people leave the district, they don't do the right thing and pay their bills. We have really no recourse at that time. Let's see. One thing that was a pleasant surprise when we did a little research is because of the high level of participation this year, there is currently $190,000 in our Chromebook insurance fund. So that might give the board some wiggle room when they think about that $250,000 damage line item. We do have more than typical in our Chromebook insurance fund, and if the current level of participation continues into next year, and if we get a little more participation because of our sliding fee scale, that would really probably be replenished up to another $100,000, give or take. We can't predict who will participate, but that is a possibility. So that's an important consideration, that some of the money currently in the Chromebook insurance fund could be used to backfill some of those damaged Chromebooks that Mr. Holland was talking about the other day. He also provided a Chromebook damage report that really pinpoints where the bulk of the damage comes from. And as he did report, sorry, the lag time here's a little bit on my computer. As he reported to the board, it's largely a middle school issue, though each level has its own, level of concern. So 39% of all the damage reports are elementary kids, 64% are middle, and 56% are high school. And the two middle schools are virtually in a dead heat percentage-wise. Looks like our biggest grade of offenders is grade 8. It is important to know, though, by grade 8, those machines are 4 years old. So they are already kind of at the end of their useful life. And, as you can see, are minimal complaints from our kindergartners. So, it looks like those middle years are a bit of a challenge, and for some reason, freshmen in high school. But That's our current trajectory, as I mentioned the other evening, and Mr. Holland and Mr. Slater did as well. We are actively putting forward lessons about Chromebook care. Clearly, it's articulated in the Chromebook replacement insurance policy. We have an acceptable use policy. But I think there probably can be even more communication, perhaps out of my office, about the uptick in damages that we're seeing and how that is costing. Excuse me. Oh, that's Mrs. Yap.
Oh.
Is she not able to get in? No, I know the door is open here. I'm wondering if she can't get into the meeting.
She's not here. I can send her another invite.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put my phone on silent so that doesn't happen again. But yeah, the meeting's available, so. Anyway, so I think while we are very concerned about the uptick in damage, we are taking steps to mitigate it. And we'll continue to monitor it to see if any of our, public service announcements, the things that we've been doing are having any impact. So that's kind of our Chromebook Q&A report. Maybe I'll stop there to see if there are any questions on those items.
Mr. Halloran?
Can you hear me?
You're quiet.
Is this better?
Please hold. Try again.
Is this better?
Oh, yeah, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is it too loud now? I don't want to be the booming
you're good.
voice.
Oh, you're good.
All right. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm just feeling a little under the weather. I had a question. Thank you very much about providing the comparison with other schools about their insurance. I was wondering if they have the same cycle we do, because there seems to be kind of a pattern here. I think we issue Chromebooks in K,
Same.
5, 8, and 12. I was wondering if the other schools kind of have the same replacement cycle, because it looks like we get to right at the end of their useful life, right before they're about to replace, and that's where most of the damage comes in.
I'd really have to have Craig look into that, Mr. Halloran. I'm not sure if it's because we have a longer replacement cycle. That is quite a possibility. I think I might have had a 3-year cycle in my former district. So I will ask the tech team for that.
Thank you. Don't mean to give them more work. I'm just curious.
No, it's a good question, because we've contemplated a 3-year cycle, but that would be pricier in the long run, because you're replacing them every 3 years, similar to a quicker bus replacement cycle is more pricey. So, but I think I will double check that and see what that is.
Thank you very much.
We're just getting word that there is some issue with some of the folks online. So we're working actively to resolve that issue. That's why I received a phone call a few minutes ago.
Ms. Weaver, then Ms. Petras.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, because I think, obviously it's helpful to see those fees and those kinds of things. That's why we ask the questions, because I don't think, we're not sure we're not proposing anything that doesn't make sense. So want to say thank you on that. And then it looks like to me, I just wanted to clarify and make sure it's $1,500 per year total in fees that we lose.
Specific to Chromebooks, yes.
So, and just to clarify further, it's fees not paid by families. That's fees in damage, correct? Not we're losing or non-payment for insurance.
Right. No, we
Okay.
can't assess the insurance. That's a voluntary
Right.
thing. It's kind of
Okay.
a risk that people are willing to take. But this is, I have a Chromebook, I'm leaving, either I take my Chromebook with me, or I don't pay for the damages that I left on the Chromebook, or
Okay.
they were assessed a few years ago and I hadn't paid them yet.
And just to be a little more curious, if we could have, we can't require, but if there is a more, I don't know, a higher level than volunteering, if there's a way to say highly recommend, if not, this is what you pay. I'm just trying to think in terms of that, and obviously still considering the sliding scale for those who can afford. Just trying to think of ways, obviously, when it comes to I'm just trying to comport how, if we're only losing $1,500 in fees per year, but we're getting this much more damage, where is this coming from? Obviously
Right.
from those 8th graders, just trying to take an analysis, just because it is such a big part of a big increase this year. And getting to the root cause seems difficult now.
It is. I mean, I think perhaps having it come more from my office. Right
Yeah.
now it comes from the technology office. Sometimes
Okay.
if it comes out of my office, there's a little more attention paid to it. I could do audio. But I think it's not a bad idea for our stakeholders to know that they ought to be, being real monitor their children, with the usage because, these damages are starting to add up. And the other thing too that Craig and I talked about today is we have a firm belief that if you have some issue with your Chromebook, whether it's damage you caused or it's going on the fritz, we want you to have another Chromebook that day to use because you'll miss out on so much education if you don't. Other school systems may allow the child to not have that, and that's something we've avoided. I will tell you, I've gone on instructional rounds visits in other school systems that have that other policy, and I see kids there sitting there doing nothing. And that, to me, is not a good way to go. So, we do want to keep that robust spare cycle because these kind of things do break down. It's just the way the world works sometimes. But I think what we could try to control more is why are these damages adding up so much?
Yeah.
So,
And I guess maybe too, in that, just as a food for thought is too, I don't know if people are reticent to have it fixed too, if, it is this one key or not, and maybe
Yeah.
aren't kind of thinking about that. And as Mr. Holland said, like
It adds
that adds up. And knowing just reemphasizing maybe what the insurance covers, like if it's a key there and that, oh gosh, let's not hear that echoing in my voice. I just think that would be helpful.
can we just send her the invite? Okay. She's claiming it's a lot of people, not just her.
Wonder if she's trying to.
There are,
identify them.
yeah, our whole special ed team is trying.
Okay, so that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
We've got,
I wonder if there's something wrong, like if Sean got in by the calendar as opposed to the email.
Robert Blank. Sorry, Robert Blank.
that's, I think, and that's the NCTV people. Should we take a quick
Yeah,
recess
let's
to
take a
resolve this
quick,
issue?
yeah.
All right, let me see.
We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Anastasia. Sorry about that.
No problem.
We're just gonna wait one more minute and then reconvene.
Can they ensure for the roll call I'm marked here and not absent, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can reconvene, seeing the people joining from the other meeting. Sorry about that, everyone.
And the meeting's being recorded as well. So folks that might have missed the first few minutes would still be able to review it online. But we're simply going through some of the follow-up questions posed by the board. Right now, we just finished our discussion on the technology follow-up, and the board has some further questions about what is the typical replacement cycle for other school districts, because our insurance charges are a little higher than average for other school districts. And yet those districts seem to have fewer costs than us. So we're going to get a little information on that, though we did discuss that a 3-year Chromebook replacement cycle would ultimately be more expensive because you're replacing the Chromebooks every 3 years instead of 4 to 5 years like we do. So I don't know if there were any further questions on the Chromebook budget issue.
Yes, Mary.
Just a quick question about the $190,000 that's in the insurance fund. If we were to tap into that, is there a certain cushion that we need to leave?
That's a great question. I did speak to Mr. Holland today, and he said that he could, to take care of some of that damage he's trying to recoup, he could use $100,000 of that money this year, which could then allow the board to reduce by $100,000 in the operating budget, leaving him a $90,000 cushion for next year. I will tell you that some of the items, some of that money is earmarked for Chromebook cases, 1,000 Chromebook cases, and they're about $25 each, so that's a $25,000. So that would then 90 minus 25,000 would still leave him with some money to start the year. And again, then we replenish this again. We send out those Chromebook agreements again for parents to pay. Will we have the same participation level as we did this year, which was high? That would be my hope. And then we'll maybe recoup a few more fees from other folks. So. Okay, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right, the board asked the curriculum office to review the issues relative to a variety of things. Kristen, would you be so kind as to summarize your memo?
Jen Freaks was able to provide me information regarding the number of certifications that are earned. So the data that is shown up there is since the beginning of last school year up till present time. So you can see the number of OSHA certification. There's 2 different CPR certification. One of them includes first aid, so that's a little bit more involved. And the other one that I was not aware of was Stop the Bleed training, which I learned all about in their open house breakfast this morning. Any questions about certifications? Next, I reviewed the library and media budget. The following list shows my recommended cuts that would result in a reduction of 52,000, a little over $52,000. So that would be maintaining all of the 1A requests in the library and media. And again, doing our best to continue to support that program through title funds as we can. Finally made contact with Ms. Antonio. The two books that are priority, and I think I mentioned this 2 evenings ago, are The Modern World and the U.S. History. It is a subscription that expires, and if it expires, we do have textbooks, but we only buy one classroom set of textbooks because the kids like the online subscription. So we have two choices. We renew the online, or we buy all textbooks for the remaining students. And this is just the better way to go. So that really needs to be done. The AP Psychology textbook, Ms. Antonio indicated that could wait another year. There have been some updates made to AP Psychology. Mr. Barbarata is the teacher of that. He's feeling confident that he can prepare students adequately, as he usually does, without having the text. And in looking at the financial literacy, when Ms. Antonio and I talked about that more thoroughly, the current teacher, Ms. Roach, is getting through her second semester of teaching that and has kind of already learned some kinks and some things that she'd like to do differently. So we decided to postpone that until she has another kind of full year under her belt of teaching that course. So that also reduces the budget. 28,000, sorry. I can't see it there.
Yeah, Ms. Weaver.
Shout out to Barb's for still teaching the AP Psych class. It is, I know, one of the most popular courses for AP. Just a question, how long is the contract, do we know, for the World and History subscription? Just
Most of those contracts are 3 or 5 years. It usually depends on sometimes what we purchase based on the budget year, and sometimes it depends on who the supplier is of the text.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for those updates.
So when I added that up, if my math is accurate, that would allow the board to reduce by 80,250. But maybe Luke can check my math for me. All right, we did have a question posed to Chris, our athletic director. He is still doing research on that. In other words, are our athletic fees comparable to our DERG? But he was amenable to the fact that, you know, we have not raised our rates since 2019. So there are options there for a slight uptick. He also said there could be, sometimes we don't charge if kids are involved in more than 2 sports, I believe it is. We could amend that policy and charge them for each time they're in a sport versus any type of waivers. So the board, I should have this answer by next Wednesday, but it sounds like there could be some cost savings there with a slight uptick to our fees. And as he mentioned in his presentation last week, we do work with families who are, you know, challenged, and we don't want anyone not participating due to financial constraints. So long story short, more updates to follow, but there might be some cost savings to be had there. Mr. Freese was asked to review his planned expenditures, for PD to see if they were, his current requested amount was accurate. He did prepare not accurate, but still needed. He prepared a spreadsheet or a small chart, so let me get that up for him. And Mr. Freese, would you mind speaking to that?
Certainly. So we did have an opportunity to go back and take a look at where we are to date. So as of today, 102 days into the school year, our expenditures have been around $27,538 of operating budget funds for the professional learning account that we all reviewed the other night. We have around 9,000 encumbered, which is a total of about 36,000. If we just take the 78 days remaining and project out, we have about $21,050 or $60 that would be remaining. That would bring us in totality with the 27 expended in the 2160 remaining projected, about 57,000. So we believe at this time that we have an opportunity to cut about $20,000 from that account. We do project that we will require funding that will go up to $80,000 as we do this year. But right now, a lot of the other professional learning monies that we are using are coming from title grants or the open choice grant. We're just hopeful that we continue to receive that money so we can continue to pay for the professional learning that we really do account for here in the Newington Public Schools through that funding source.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Parisi? No. Oh, did you have a question?
Well, it's for Kristen.
That's fine. Can you use your mic?
Kristen, I got 2 emails through my personal email the other day. People were questioning nobody questions the need for a jewelry too. They think it's a positive thing. But everybody keyed in on the $275,000 the following year to upgrade the room or do the renovations. So I'm just wondering if there's a way I support it, but is there a way we can present it that it looks more transparent? Because I don't want to obligate us to a budget next year if I'm not here. We're going to have to put in $275,000 for that renovation, correct?
I'm going to ask
Ventilation
Lou about the
system.
275. That's a figure that's not coming to mind. I remember it being 15,000.
15,000. And we always have the option too, that if the resources are not available to renovate the lab, they could use either a science lab, which is the game plan for next year anyway, or forego it. So
Some people were concerned.
Yeah.
They came up with
isn't that interesting? It should be 15. We've had folks out, Lou, I don't know if you want to just briefly add to that, but it was not even close to that.
News to me.
I was just gonna say, I think maybe the figure is coming from, the Chromebook one was 285,000 for that was the increase, so. That might be. You're fine.
No, I appreciate the ability to clarify that. Again, we're running it next year using a science lab, which has the exhaust capabilities. We'll look to do those upgrades if we can, but if we can't, we will not. And certainly they're not 285, they're 15,000. So thank you for clarifying that though, because you don't want misinformation out there. All right. The board also asked about reading line item 601130. Karen, I posed that question to Karen today and she was able to put together a memo, which you have at your table. I will eventually link this memo into the PowerPoint, but that line includes a variety of materials, Benchmark Advanced Kindergarten book set, the Rycraft Books Knowledge Strand collection, which I believe is also part of Benchmark, Dynamite Decodables for grade K and Dynamite Decodables for grade 1. These are all resources to support our reading program. And the total there is $120,995. And that was that big ticket item that folks wanted more information about. So it's outlined here in detail, but I will link it to the PowerPoint.
We might have said it last time, but I can't remember. Those Raycraft books, what grades are those?
Those are grades K through 4.
K through 4. Okay, all elementary. Okay, thank you.
To the grant, to the printout. So thank you for that last minute scramble. Thank you, Karen. We also had some questions posed from Mr. Sharma that came in through email after the board meeting. One was asking us about new hire costs. We did say in our presentation that as folks leave the district and we have to replace them, typically through retirement, they are getting replaced at a higher cost. So Mr. Farisi developed a chart to explain that, which I will shift over to. There it goes. Mr. Farisi, can you see that okay?
Yeah. There's a graph with it earlier.
Oh, no.
It's
on ours.
Oh, good.
There it is.
Yeah.
It popped in.
That's
Yeah.
the best part.
I know, it's a nice graph. I
The
wouldn't
visual
want that.
representation is, so I appreciated the question, and I think what you see here, and if I could just explain the chart a moment, the question was for the last 3 years, what has been the kind of outlook of the hiring process for staff, and what are we kind of pulling people in for and what are people leaving at. So what you'll see in the first column is the salary of staff who would be exiting Newington in each of those years. That's the average salary. And then right next to it would be the new cost, the cost for staff to come in. And again, these are just the averages for that year. And you'll see right next to it the differences. So in some years, there's a savings, and in some years, not so much, right? But I think what's most important and most telling is as you look at how much it's costing in the new staff column, each year that's going up, right? The teacher shortage areas are becoming larger. And so nationally, there's just a teacher shortage. So the cost to bring people in, to recruit people, to hire is highly competitive. And so we're seeing the outcomes of that in this chart. Previous to all this, before maybe when teaching was a little more desirable of a career, we had seen where someone might have left in that first column at a higher pay scale, and then we would bring them in at a much lower pay scale. And you'll see that reflected in the 22-23 school year as you go across under the column that reads target. Our target used to be much lower because we used to be able to acquire staff at a much lower rate. Now that target just keeps going higher and higher. And you can see that reflected in the cost that we're spending to hire staff. So we've had to increase that kind of step range that's in the contract. So with all that being said, I'd be open to any questions that you might have. Yes, Ms. Weaver?
I think Sam had one, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to just make a comment. Thanks for doing this. It's pretty, the graph, I love the graph thing.
Thank you.
And I know CV presented this before too, or perhaps I was privy to it when we're doing union negotiations, but like where we stand in terms of what we pay teachers is kind of like in the middle of the pack too. I know we've had that presented at boards before too,
Yeah.
but just curious, that's pretty much consistent now too. Like we're not top, but we're not bottom. It's
Exactly. We're either in the upper half or like lower third at the higher rate, masters and higher. And then in the beginning rate for staff, we are a little bit below the halfway point. So it's kind of on each side of the middle.
okay. And just clarifying too, the majority of our budget is staff costs with benefits, right? So, I mean, I think this is one of the biggest budget drivers as well is there an average amount of like change in steps? So say someone applying, was a step 8 and now they jump to a step 10, 11. Is there an average on that or are we just seeing, right,
So-
it's case by case, I guess?
Right. No, thank you. I think that's a good question. I'll try to answer it from what I think the question is. When folks apply, if they are a step 8 in their current district, we're bringing them in naturally where they would go in their last district to a step 9, right? So that isn't really
Okay.
that different. What's different is that we're generally hiring folks that are at the step 10 or 11 with a master's now, where previously we'd be able to recruit and hire folks that were a bachelor's, maybe step 1 or 2. Which is the much lower rate that you see in the earlier years. And we realized in the 22-23 school year that target was no longer a great target, even though we were budgeting for that. And I think that's where we saw the disconnect. And we spoke a lot about that, and we did some analysis like this and realized that's not an appropriate budgeting target.
Okay. And just finally, curious, like, so the average, I guess, new staff, you would say, I guess the shortage is more coming from the bachelor level. If we can kind of find a pain point where there's most of those who are applying to the jobs that we're having have masters and are higher steps, whereas the application pool for lower steps is less.
That is correct. Mhm.
Thank you.
Probably won't take that long unless there's a lot of questions. This one? I don't think so. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Parisian, once again, stellar graph.
Glad it pops up.
So there was a question also posed by Mr. Sharma relative to the bus replacement cycle. And it had to do with how has that funding gone in recent years? And as Mr. Giacomo explained the other evening, and unfortunately it's blocked now by a little bit by the camera, but the last time the town officially funded the bus replacement cycle was in this year, which Lou 22-23, was it?
Yes.
And that's when it was back prior to that major escalation in costs of 488,725. The last 2 years, there's been no direct funds put forth into the bus replacement cycle by the town. However, in full disclosure, they did allow and directed the board to purchase buses using another town resource. One year it was some capital monies they had left over. And in last year's budget, we were directed to use the Garfield Street renovation fund. So that now has, both those accounts had been drained. So we're not, again, we're requesting that they fully fund the bus replacement cycle this year. Lou went through in great detail the other night about the bubble years, and that's why we asked for that higher amount. But even if they just go with what we need to get next year's buses, it's $737,364. And again, he went into great detail about cost escalation for buses. We went into great detail about our repair issues. And I think the board has also heard that the electric buses are extraordinarily expensive. So going in that direction is also not feasible without an infrastructure, but it's also extremely expensive right now. So those are all the things we've tried to look into, and our bus replacement cycle is very long for the industry. As stated previously, when you are with a contracted company, you have to start off with brand new buses every year. Usually that's what's in the contract. That jacks up prices. And the very few districts in the state that have buses have a slightly shorter replacement cycle than us. So we've done everything we can to keep it low, but we're up against a tremendous challenge of increased cost, increased part costs, and lag time for orders to come in. But I hopefully we did a good job the other evening demonstrating why it is still far more cost effective to have your own buses than it is to lease or have a contract with the various providers that the state of Connecticut has. So that I believe is what the question was asking. Okay. Sorry. All right, the next question that we fielded was the adult ed and ECS monies. I did reach out to one of our contacts through CAPS about what is the projected ECS money for Newington next year. She is still looking to see if there's any updates, but what she projected and shared was, by she, I mean Kathy Gay, last year, the town, and this is real, they did get 16,720,024. This year, based on a chart that's about a year old, they're going to get 16,981,453. Sorry, that last number's got a missing number. Oh, it's 240. So not a substantial increase. Fixing that because it's going to drive me crazy. However, if that is to be updated, Kathy Gay was going to do a little homework for me, and if that changes, I'll update this slide. But the increase next year is not as substantial as previous years. I believe the year before last, it was about $1 million increase. So that was that. And there was a question posed by Mr. Sharma, and he posed the same question for the adult ed grant, is some sort of MOU. That would really be not something we could approach the town, but when you look at the adult ed grant, it's not a big chunk of money. So this is what the adult ed grant is year to year for the past couple of years. And again, every state, every district in the state of Connecticut, this money goes to the town. So the 2023 adult ed grant was $52,967. The year after that was $57,458. And this year is projected 43,075. But Lou, did I read this chart correctly that there's another payment coming for 20,000? Okay. So though apparently the town gets payments throughout the year, like some of our. So that's really where that money goes. And I think what certainly to Mr. Sharma's point is we definitely should be visible to the town about what they're going to receive. I mean, I imagine Janet's following that closely, but you know, they would probably know based on their experiences what their typical increases are in adult ed and their typical increases are in ECS, although ECS is definitely more volatile. But they put that in as an offset to their budget, and that's what they're allowed to do by state law. Whereas some of the other funds that come in, like open choice, they have flexibility, and that's where we have entered into MOUs. Years ago, we did it for pre-K tuition. That doesn't have a state law attached to it, so it was really a town board agreement. The open choice special ed reimbursement, similar, does not have a state law attached to it. That's why we entered an MOU with the town on that. I don't see that the town would have any reason to enter into an MOU about this with us. And I'm not even sure if it's something that would be legal. But that's kind of the long and short of it. In all transparency, the adult ed grant is not a tremendous amount of money.
Yes, Ms. Beaver.
So just curious, the overall 20,000, not this one, but the estimated one from on ECS, that was our total ECS money, not just the adult ed grant. Obviously, this is 60,000, the 16.9 million would be what's estimated. That does not account for if fully funding legislation was passed.
Right.
Just to
If
clarify.
the formula changes, this was what was projected, but I did note in the chart that Ms. Gay sent me is it's supposed to be reviewed again in February. So she's running a report now based on what Governor Lamont's budget had put in there for. So if there's a substantial, well, any change, I'll certainly let the board know. But again, this money goes to the town. If they get more money, are they likely to be more generous to the board? I don't know. But certainly, I know last year, like I said, there was a substantial increase. This year, it looks like it's not as much. We are fortunate that it's not going down. Other communities are experiencing a loss. Because of our needs, that isn't happening to us, but something to keep in mind. But yeah, the adult ed grant is separate from ECS, and this is what the adult ed grant has or will have. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, I just
Okay.
was, if it was fully funded, we're projecting 640,000 versus a $20,000 guess. That's just a gap, obviously,
Oh, you're talking about ECS.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It's
I'm sorry,
ECS,
excess costs.
excess cost, not ECS.
Right.
So that's where I wanted to
My
clarify the
apologies, yes.
difference.
Too many acronyms.
If some folks get the ECS versus, yeah,
Yes,
just wanted to clarify.
if Representative Farrar and her team are successful, as mentioned the other night, in fully funding excess cost for a town like us, based on our projections, that would be another 648,000 offset. That'd be huge.
Just want to make sure no one's clarifying, like, this one is the same as
It's
that
not.
one and,
And my apologies for.
no.
for,
I just know the
conflating the
acronyms,
two.
excess costs and the EC, like, it all just sounds the same. So I want to make sure no one gets confused where that all the acronyms come from.
Well, clearly I get confused. So, but no, there's a hope out there with excess costs. If she's unsuccessful, next year's excess cost will be very similar to this year's right now, unfortunately. And last but not least, Chairman Parati asked me to discuss the fact that we have had non-lapsing funds used as an offset in our budget, but in the last several years, we haven't had to dip into it all that much. So I asked Lou to prepare a brief update about how have we been able to manage that?
I haven't finished the formal document, but I can certainly speak to the issues surrounding it.
You have your mic on.
Sorry about that. Okay, with the significant increase in the proposed utilization of the non-lapsing fund started for the 23-24 school year. okay, where we had $3 million or so in the non-lapsing fund. And a lot of the budget decisions were wrapped around utilization of those funds to pay for operating budget expenses. Okay. We have the, can spend it on anything that is in their board purview. If we wanted to buy school buses, we wanted to, invest in, capital for the computers or facility repairs, all expenditures are appropriate for the use of the non-lapsing fund. So, but the decision was made that we needed to utilize the funds to reconcile the operating budget. So as the 23-24 budget played out, we were looking at approximately $2.5 million, $2,500,000 for the 24-25 budget to plug the gap, which was, somewhere around the high 2%. So in essence, we've gave the town 2.5% budget, non-lapsing fund picked up 2.5%. The remainder 100% went to the town as part of the general operating budget. So that transpired. We typically try to design our implementation plans where discretionary items or items that are capital nature happen April, May, and June, the fourth fiscal quarter of our year, because we can be certain of the access to the funds. We can be certain what our plans are, or if things have changed, we can, do a quick turn. So instead of investing $100,000 in social studies, we need to invest it $150,000 into science curriculum or science materials or science construction of some type. So by back end loading, it provides us flexibility for ultimately how things are done. As all of us can be aware, Steve put it up on the chart where staffing is at a premium. To get certified staff, we've added 30% to our, initial hiring cost, and we still have vacancy issues that are there. We have chronic, significant unfilled positions in support areas, especially in the special ed area for paraprofessionals and support tutors. That accumulates breakage all during the year for money that's not spent that was earmarked for staffing, but we just could never find a person to fill the slot. So you have breakage as the alternative to that. Other things that broke in our favor the last couple of years, we've had good winter weather, so we haven't had real high demands for heat in the buildings. Air conditioning has been pretty, significant, but not as bad as the winter season could be. And we ended up having some breakage in the utility area. So as we were coming into the fourth fiscal quarter the last few years, we've had significant accumulation of breakage on salaries and a reasonably significant amount of money on utilities that were coming in under budget. All we need is a bad month and the utilities thing all goes away. But, since we're looking in the rearview mirror and when April comes around, we're out of the heating season and we can make good judgments as far as how the rest of the year is going to go. So when the board and the council were discussing the 23-24 budget starting this time, one of the things we were asked to do is, can we get to zero in using the non-lapsing funds this year, in that year, which would have been 22-23, so we can take everything we have set aside in the non-lapsing fund and roll it forward and use it the following year. So put the onus on us as the administration to be able to come up with methods of deferrals, cancellations, postponement, and reutilization of our existing resources where we did not need to tap the non-lapsing fund in the 22-23 years, so it could be used for 23-24. Okay. Fast forward another year, we had exactly the same thing happen where instead of being at $2.5 million, we were at $3,400,000 for our balance in our non-lapsing fund. And we used all but $3,000 of it to reconcile the current budget we're in right now. So we're running a $3.4 million dependency on the non-lapsing fund for our budget this year. I am not as confident that we can figure out a way to bridge the $3.4 million gap with what we have for resources available and the opportunities that are there. So as of right now, we're trying to use the strategy, right? We're going to reserve $1 million of the $3.4 million in non-lapsing to pay expenditures of this year, which it was designed for. You know, it's nothing inappropriate. It's just instead of using 3.4 million to pay this year's bills, we're going to try to limit it to $1 million. So we then have $2.4 million rolling forward to next year. And we had a planned transfer from the open choice money back to our Board of Ed CIP to go to non-lapsing to supplement it, to get it up to the 2.8 million number for this year. So the mechanics are pretty easy as far as how it's going. It's the decision-making necessary to get us from where we're rolling forward with all these potential projects and things we're trying to do and say, we have to put the brakes on, we can't do this anymore. So most of the things won't be transparent for a year or two, but they will catch up with us, you know, because we are not able on our own to invest in our buses out of, you know, the money that we had in non-lapsing account. You know, we have not been able to reinvest in our facilities to the level and depth that we've done over the last few years. You know, we've always in there, you know, fixing up, replacing air conditioning and heating units that are there, the painting, the carpeting work, the general aesthetics of the schools are going to suffer and have been suffering because we just don't have the money to invest $75,000 this summer to paint. Maybe we'll have $10,000 to $20,000. So there's all these contractions of areas of our work, but the biggest areas where it's hurting is some of what you talked about today. You know, the buses that we really aren't in a position to supplement that on our own. When we used to be able to do that years ago, we would utilize operating budget resources to buy buses if the resources were available at the end of the year. You know, same thing with technology, not necessarily Chromebooks, but I'm talking general technology, network infrastructure, wireless access points, all the guts that run the network. You know, we're not able to reinvest to the level we would want to there. So we're going to see some chinks in the armor in the near future. And then, you know, the facility items that we're not able to continually reinvest like we have in the past. So, you know, and those are just the realities of it. And, you know, it does add up to a meaningful amount of money. Like all of our HVAC equipment is 40% more expensive than it was 3 years ago. So, you know, as an example, we have a bid that we opened about a week and a half ago for replacing 3 rooftop units at Martin Kellogg. We had $290,000 in this year's Board of Ed CIP account. The estimate for just buying the equipment is $410,000 and another, we'll say $90,000 to make it a nice round $500,000 to finish the whole project. So that's not going to be able to be done in totality. Maybe we can get 2/3 of it done, but there's no way we can get all of it done. So our planned replacement activity scales just keep slipping further and further. You know, you won't see it all in 1 year where just things stop, but there will be this gradual degradation, an increase of difficulties, problems, and things we either can't resolve or it takes us a lot longer to resolve it because financial resources, you know, become paramount in how we can approach these issues. So I haven't figured out how to write this one yet.
All right.
That's kind of what we're
But
at.
I think the short answer is, you know, breakage has occurred through unfilled positions such as paras, other positions, support positions. We've gotten some breakage on the weather and utility costs when the weather is cooperative.
Okay.
But at some point, the luck will run out and we're going to have to rely on it more than we'd like to. But those are some of the things that have happened in our favor. And obviously the big, if you can call this a favor, the only reason we really have a non-lapsing fund right now is because of COVID.
Right.
Because those 2 years when school was not fully operational, we saved a lot of money by not running buses and such like that. So that's when the non-lapsing fund actually started to have any kind of meaningful balance. And since then, we've tried to preserve it. Lou's report will include a few years where we've dipped into it a little bit, but we've been able to, through just real careful spending and some good fortune, not dipped into it as much as we projected. So that'll be something that we'll monitor continuously throughout the next
Right.
several
And the
months of
only-
budgeting.
Excuse me for interrupting. In the amount we have earmarked for non-lapsing fund utilization this year was 3.9% of our budget. Just by dropping it back to the 2.7 million, 2.8 million for next year, that drops the reliance down to 3%. So one of the benefits of eliminating the reliance on non-lapsing funds, you come much closer to fully funding your budget every year. You know, don't have the issue of there's funds somewhere else, go get them, use that to balance your budget. And when you have difficult choices, like money was reserved this year to do things this year to catch up. But the same issue has reemerged where we need to utilize the non-lapsing fund to take care of next year's budget gap, because we were negative 4% to start. The 6.86 number that Dr. Brummer is proposing has to cover, some of that gap that wasn't dealt with in prior years. So until you can get back to zero reliance on non-lapsing fund, every year you'll have very challenging budget requests coming up because it's got to build in the catch-up that's on that.
Thank you.
All right. So unless there are any further questions, we can segue to the continuation of the review of different departments. And on your at your seat, there should be a revised chart. Tonight we have special ed up first. We have the special ed leadership team on the line now that they've gotten in. So we don't project anything. They're just going to speak to the 4 departments that they oversee, which is the special ed, the nursing, psychological services, and speech and hearing services. So welcome, Claire Salerno, Alex Heslin, and Danielle Singleton. Hello.
I've been designated as the person to introduce the program for them, and then the questions will be directed to them. All 3 of our assistant directors, just have paper copies of the budget in front of them at their residence or wherever they're calling in from. So they may be a little less responsive to, need 30 seconds to a minute to get to an answer that's being posed. Just the circumstances today with Mrs. Giulioso not being able to be here. So,
and just to kind of, sorry to interrupt, Lou, just as we've done with previous departments, we're not getting into every line. We're simply providing the board with an overview of any substantial uptick. And then as the board reviews pages, if they have specific concerns or questions, but in the interest of time and bad weather, we were just going to go through this with meaningful changes versus a line-to-line overview.
yes, I've been put on a short leash to be quick. So I will do my best.
Glad you're picking up what I'm putting down, Lou.
Okay, so the page that has, I'll be referring to this for everybody to just start the conversation on these things. And, certainly if there's, follow-ups, that'll be fine. But we give everybody just the depth of, where this is and how it fits is what we're doing. So staffing proposed for next year is 47.1 special ed teachers, which is up from the current number. That's a combination of additional case managers that's there, special coverage for a grant arrangement that we have, and 2 minor fractional adjustments for continuing staff members, 1 up, 1 down, to get to the plus 2.9. One of these is the approach where we have hired a new teacher and abandoned trying to fill 4 paraprofessional positions to see if we have better success with filling that and the continuity of both services and staffing for the year. Okay. The other positions are essentially unchanged other than funding the differentials for expected compensation changes for everybody. The consultants line is a little bit less than what it was this year because of essentially there was more built into that account than what was necessary, so that they will be trimmed back. The 560 accounts, which are the various types of tuition, are showing an increase in aggregate of approximately $1 million. I went through and reviewed all of our case forecasting system to go through this. And right now there's 42 students in this classification that are, in out of district placements. And with the anticipated scope of services that are needed, those cases will cost more than $900,000 more that we have to budget. Probably 50% or 60% of those dollars, though, will be eligible for the excess cost grant. So we will be getting money rebated to us later in the year from the state on that. So it's not a 100% out-of-pocket expense. Okay, the 599 contracted services has, the correct open choice paras, and those all get rebilled to Hartford every load, but we have to front the money in the budget. It has a fee for the ESS program, and in the 24-25 year, that was partially funded through one of the ESSER grants. So now those are all gone, so we have to bring that back to the operating budget. So it's $400,000 add to the budget request. There is also allowance for those occasions where we can't find a staff member and we have to go out to an agency and get somebody. Okay. Supplies are something I would really direct back to the three assistant directors because they can speak to the details by level. There is not a tremendous amount of dollars that are tied into this. I mean, it is $20,000 more, but over a student population special ed of around 650 kids. This is very widespread across the district and not any one initiative. So, if anybody has inquiry about this, but as soon as I get through doing the whole list, we'll go back and follow up with questions on it. Media library, speaks to Starfall, which I don't know what that is in lesson picks. I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure Claire, Alex, and Danielle can speak to that. The tests in 617 are the typical ones in special ed area for evaluating the students' capabilities. Textbooks are limited, which is the EdMark reading program. Other supplies are not directly student related, but things necessary to support the special ed program that are there. One dues and membership into Concase, and a small number of professional materials for the year that I don't necessarily know off the top of my head. So all the tuitions, everything is based on need. I know that from personal review of the amounts there, that they're well thought out and well forecasted for next year. The program materials are, I will need their assistance, and I did speak earlier to the reallocation of 4 paraprofessionals for 1 certified teacher ed. And then there's the variety of grant dollars that come back as offsets to the account are listed here. So I'll open it for any questions and we can direct them to our guests.
Ms. Petras?
I think we've addressed this before, but I just want to clarify, the students that are outplaced that we receive some reimbursement, do you remember offhand what percentage we're reimbursed, or is it kind of a flexible?
Well, the reimbursement threshold this year for a locally placed kid is around $95,000. For anybody that's placed by the state is $28,500, somewhere in that area. We only have a couple of those. So basically when the cost of the case gets up over $95,000, we then are eligible to have those dollars presented to the state under the excess cost program. And we typically get 70% of that back. 70%. Yeah.
Ms. Weaver? Lee, you might not be able to do this one. The under purchase services, so could you just clarify private tuition versus the public tuition? Because that's going up about $800,000.
That's the definitions the state gave us for how to use these. And they just did in the last couple of years of changing which ones are for what. They used to have an account where those that had like rent controlled pricing for their placements against those where the facility could charge anything they wanted. So they're kind of transforming their reporting to get the information they want. So evidently, they definitely want to see the magnet school separate from what you need to do to support all the kids that are your general population at that point.
So these aren't, just to clarify, in our line, when it says private tuition, it's not private school tuition,
No,
but,
it's wouldn't necessarily be, it's not a public.
but,
Special ed.
private special ed,
Yeah.
right? So, but I'm saying it's not like Northwest Catholic or something.
it's
We're
not.
not, I just want to clarify that. But obviously that's going up around $800,000. And we are obligated to pay that.
Is that dependent on the students that we're projecting to have next year?
Yes.
Okay.
And we also do typically have a few holding spots for the inevitability that a few other students will go out next year. But no, that 4 million, close to $5 million price tag is for our out-of-district place students.
Right.
Do you
And
mind
that's
giving
net
like
of
a,
the estimated
okay.
excess cost grant.
Do you mind if you, that's without it?
That's netted into that number.
Oh,
It's
okay.
already, it's in other words, it's already credited.
Okay. If you have like a more breakdown on that, just to clarify, because I think obviously, it's a huge part of it and we're obligated to pay. So
Right.
I'm not going to say unfunded mandate, but in a way.
The excess cost grant estimate offsetting the cost was somewhere between $1.5 million and $1.6 million coming back to the district.
Okay. Yeah. I just would be curious too, just kind of like the average prices of those out of district ones, just to kind of give some transparency, some light onto, it's almost a $5 million budget item. That's a huge part of our budget
Sure.
because we are required to, provide that. That's a big hit.
And then just kind of along those lines, the public tuition line is almost, just over $100,000 more than last year. That's strictly for students that are attending magnet schools that need special education services.
That is what my understanding is, Lou. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't really hear what you said, but
The public tuition line item is that
all magnet
students,
school students
all magnet school,
that have
not
special ed services.
With special ed, which is what her
with
question
special ed.
was.
Okay.
We're not
If I
paying
remember
for a
correctly.
regular ed magnet anymore, that's going off of excess ECS money. But the cost there is we're obligated to pay
Right.
for students who have a cost affiliated with their magnet school placement for special ed reasons, and frankly, for 504 reasons too.
So it could be a para, it could be testing, it could be just,
All the above.
All of
And-
the above. We literally get an a la carte billing for every child in a magnet school who has special needs or 504 needs.
okay. And maybe just a breakdown of why it's increasing 100,000. Is it more students or is it more students with more services? That kind of thing.
Placed and magnet school
If
special
I
ed.
remember correctly, it was about 35 students that this applies to.
35 magnet school
Individual magnet
students
school
with
students.
special ed.
Right.
So the board's asking for some detail behind that.
Put together something.
Okay, that we will do.
Sorry, and just to follow up too, maybe just a little bit more breakdown on the 599, the contracted services under the purchase services line. Just because it's a little volatile, but I think in
Contracted
total, I think,
services.
Okay, if you
Sorry.
disregard the allocation of schools, because.
right, okay, I just wanted to clarify
Look at
that.
the aggregate. We
Okay.
have, in excess of $800,000 reserved for correct paras that
Okay,
are there. Then there is 700 something thousand for the ESS program.
okay.
Actually, it's 699. That's the one we can reduce by $50,000.
Okay, got you.
So it's 750 in the budget. It's 699 for the final. That's fine.
Okay,
And then about $300,000 for contract services for hiring people that we just can't fill on our own. And if I remember correctly, the last item is an $8,000 one for the service we use for coordinating Medicaid billing.
and just to clarify too, so some of like that 300,000 line is, we can't fill it. If we could, it would be a cost savings in
Right.
terms of, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Yep. So it looks like we're ready to move on to health and nurse services. And again, focusing in on just what, if any, significant changes there are.
Okay, so just directing your attention to the same summary page. We have 10 full-time nurses that are here.
What
And
color tab are you on, Lou?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Yellow tab
Thank
in
you.
my book. Third yellow. So 10 full-time nurses, 2 at the high school, the nurse administrator, 1 each at the other 6 schools, and 1 floater to the district. We also have an LTS we have already hired to cover, significant medical involvement kids in Martin Kellogg, and that will extend for next year. Where the load of managing diabetic medications and other, medical fragile situations are, important on that. So that's in there, but we don't carry that one as an FTE at this point because it's not permanent at this nature. Okay. The medical advisor is for the services of Dr. McGilpin, who, gives the nurse the guidance and make sure our protocols are all according to the way it should be done during the year, and functions as a resource for the nurse administrator at all times. Contracted services are small in nature. The SNAP software is the nurse's office's management system, so software, and Sharps and just calibrating audio equipment for the hearing tests is part of that. The supplies, I don't want to go into detail because every time I see a purchase order for them, there's hundreds of different things on it. A box of 3x3 Band-Aids and a box of 2x2s and a box of 1x4s and there's hundreds and hundreds of different things. But all in all, when you look at their supply line, they are up $2,000. So
Which is
if you
not
want an
significant.
analysis on that, it'll be probably the last one that gets done.
So very flat funding in the nursing line except for salary raises.
Right. What they have for future, just, what typical things are, if they need some new wheelchairs, scales, cots, kind of things that wear out after a while in a nurse's office, as well as, I'm not all that knowledgeable about the AEDs as far as useful life. I know they need battery replacements on occasion, but I'm not sure how long the device is rated for ongoing use.
A very minimal, typical increases there. Psychology services, again, focusing in on just any type of variability in there, not line by line.
You ready for psych?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just saying, Lou, again, focusing in on just variability,
Okay.
not
Yes.
details by line, because these are
There's only
nothing out of the ordinary.
one major change this year is, having, trying to recruit a permanent full-time, school psychologist for the future, offsetting half the cost by eliminating the contract arrangements that we have where we use different people for different evaluations, and try to bring that in-house as well as providing better coverage for the entire school district. Okay, that's about a $40,000 net increase between the contract services and the offset contract services compared to the anticipated hiring salary of around $90,000 for that. Okay. The tests are varied in all kinds of different things with acronyms that just keep going on like that. Yeah, there's nothing really there. And, nothing significant for cuts or adjustments to this budget. So we have 58,000 of this year's appropriation, of which 50 is going away for the transfer to salary. So you have $8,500 of this year's appropriation and a request of $7,788. So it's like a net $700 reduction in supplies and tests and other odds and ends.
Any questions? Okay. No speech and hearing?
Speech and hearing.
Speech and hearing is a program that doesn't have any significant changes for this year. Same staffing levels. They do have requirement to rent FM units on occasion for their kids, as well as in the teacher of the hearing impaired. What we have done is we did move hearing impaired costs out of special ed into speech and hearing. So if you looked at the special ed budget, there is $191,000 in the 300, 400 accounts combined. And that is now sitting in the 2150 account for this year. So you'll see 191 and then a 0 next to it on the forecast. And then in speech and hearing, you'll have a 0 for budget and you'll have forecasted expenditures. This is just a classification change that we made to move things in there. So right now we're trending $155,000, I believe, for this year's speech and hearing expenses. So a little bit below budget. And the estimate for next year is only slightly up from that number. Okay. Any questions on that?
So just clarifying, the 400 and the 500 purchase services were from SPED.
300 and 400.
Because 500 was 0 too.
Okay. I think the 500.
Karen's nodding.
I'll call it in the question.
Right.
No, you're right. All the 191's on the 400 line.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's what.
Yes. That concludes special education costs.
So I need to ask the 3 special ed directors, how'd I do today, guys?
Thumbs up.
I was just going to say thank you so much for presenting today in Marilena's absence. We really do appreciate that. And you did a fabulous job.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, coming to our meetings on Thursdays is rubbing off, Lou.
It is.
Thank you, Lou.
We appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for understanding. And, our thoughts are with Marilena.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Sure, I don't mind. Okay. If we can indulge, we have Jason Plum here,
Yeah.
who's going to be doing the facilities, the maintenance and plant operations programs for the budget. So I'm sure you'll be tired of listening to me straight through. So.
Yeah, we'll let Jason go. He can get home after.
We're going to skip right to maintenance first.
So we'll start with maintenance. Okay. So maintenance, we have, I'll let you get to your page first. I don't have a color coded, pink tab. Okay.
Lavender.
All right, if we're ready, we have what would be around inflationary increases for the 4, 5, and 100 parts. Where you're going to see the bigger increase is in supplies. So for maintenance supplies, these would be things like electronic motors, things made of metal, things that you would use to repair the house, if you want to think of it that way. So we're seeing around a 10% material increase on that. So that would be one of the larger changes. Are there?
What's the jump on number 4 and 5? Under your maintenance supplies, says 5,000 current year, saying 20,000. Proposed going forward.
So number 4 is it's rentals. Okay. So we had we were in construction and now we're out of construction. So we took ownership of the last portion of the building. So it's gone up a little bit for what we would expect to spend on materials there.
Not a bad thing, but is there a reason salaries went down, but not position change? I have it going down.
Yeah, it's showing 545,000 down to 488. I don't know if someone was reclassified or reallocated.
Reduction of overtime for that.
Oh, overtime reduction.
Thank you, Luke.
So an accurate reduction is good. We like to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And just curious, looking at, it's not like a big change, but in terms of repairs and stuff, are those the daily, like?
Yeah, so examples of repairs would be whether we do, air conditioning unit breaks down, has a large, $20,000 part that goes out in it. So we would cover that through repairs.
Okay, I was curious, like AC or HVAC is included in this kind of stuff?
All of the above, anything on the building, building related.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as staffing, we have 5 maintenance people. We have an HVAC specialist. We have an electrical specialist, locks and keys and doors, and then 2 other general trades make up that staffing.
So
we do not have a plumber, so. I don't think there would be a steady enough of a workload to fulfill that full time. Yeah, as drains are plugged up, or we have breaks in water lines or new projects, we really supplement that through outside sources. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is it plant operations next, Mr. Plum?
Sure. Plant operations is really, it's centered around our custodial staff. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll let you get to that.
Ravender.
While you're looking for that, it's our custodial staff. These are folks taking care of the buildings, cleaning and watching out for the buildings. We see big changes in this category. Nothing really for water and sewer, which is kind of flat last year. It's gone up a little bit. We see a minor increase in telephone. Rubbish is handled through the town, so we're given the town's given out a contract to the rubbish provider, the trash company, so that number's straight from them. It's a 7% increase. It's gone up a little bit. We do see some big increases as you go down the page to natural gas and electric. So your question might be, we just had all that solar go in, and why would we see an increase in electric? The solar helped. It helped offset a lot. Electric has gone up. There were a couple factors in that we had a 4-year lock-in rate for approximately half of our electric bill, and that lock-in rate expired. So we had to go out and get a new lock-in rate through for the supply side. That went up roughly 3 cents. So on that half of the bill per kilowatt hour. And we're seeing about a 3 cents per year increase by the power company. You've probably seen it in the news. It could go higher than that, but we anticipate a 3 cents jump after December of this year, and that's all into the budget. So you're seeing the plus side from the solar, and you're seeing the negative side from the rate increases. Also to note in there is Anna Reynolds now, it's older system, it's boilers there. We're running off natural gas for heat. Now we're using a heat pump system, and a heat pump system uses electric, like your central air at home. It produces heat using that similar type of system. So that's more electric usage at Anna Reynolds. Not totally offsetting the natural gas that we use there, because we still have to heat domestic water, and we still have a boiler redundancy built into the heating system. Well, that's factored into the electrical increase, roughly 9.7%.
Is there solar going on Anna Reynolds in the near future?
Great question. Spoke with them today. We've been assigned a development person with the same company that we used for the last 4 solar installs.
Okay.
We would like to get solar out there. Solar, provides a very inexpensive kilowatt hour once it's installed. Per that consultant, we're still going to, at this time, it seems that the market's about the same. So we would see a very good offset for that solar unit if we can get it on there.
And approximately how long does that take? Is that going to be like over a year to get it all turned on and seeing the benefits, or?
We weren't a part of the original one from the get-go with the town at this early of a stage, but I would guess it's going to be a year and a half before it would be producing energy. Only a guess. We'll see
Okay.
how that goes.
Yeah, that's what I was just asking, because obviously you're not planning for solar at Anna Reynolds in this budget currently. And then just because I'm pretty sure they asked last year, so I assume that the town will ask so I think electricity, you said that we have a locked in contract.
Right. You can do it at your house. We do it commercially
Yeah.
too. So companies such as Constellation, they have a negotiated rate there, a better rate generally than you can find for the generation half of your bill. So if you talk to them, they can give you that rate. It changes every day. So you watch it until it goes to what you feel like is a low point. You take advantage of that. And we have a long-term contract with that once again lock us in at 11.13 cents
Okay.
on that side of our power bill.
So electricity, we're locked in, and then for gas and oil, I know it's not, well, I guess natural gas, can you just, at some point, let us know the assumption or the,
Yeah,
contract?
neither electric company or the natural gas company are very good at looking forward. They're great at looking backwards and telling you what you paid for your bills in the past. Natural gas is tricky, like was mentioned earlier, I think by Lou. We've had some mild winters, so those mild winters are great. It's actually a compounded benefit for us. When we have a very cold winter, we bring down the supplies that are in stored natural gas containers around, and that has an opposite effect on the price. Not only as that goes down, they have to work harder to refill it, and in your cold seasons, you pay much higher of a rate per unit than you would in a mild winter. So if we do have a bad winter, we use more and it costs more all at the same time. So it's a compounded effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay. One other change is heating oil. You'll see a zero this year on the bus garage, and that's because of a sourcing change. We're getting our heating oil through the town versus off of the oil truck, the service that we used to utilize. So that's in the bus garage budget these days.
Okay.
Questions?
I think we're good.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Plum. You have any more sections to go over?
No? Free to
You
go?
want to hang out?
Well, you're welcome to stay, but
wants to hang around.
Thank you for being here.
Have a good night.
thank you, Mr. Plum. All right, back to Lou.
Okay, general supplies is next.
General
That is
supplies.
the
Fourth green.
Fourth
green.
Fourth green, everybody.
Okay.
Do you need to put it?
This program has been
Stay for a little
stable
bit.
in what it does for the district. We have a centralized warehouse that buys commodity supplies primarily for classroom and office use around the district. That will go shop for the best possible prices and be able to ensure as much in-stock condition as possible, given when demand's coming from the various schools. About 300 items on the overall list. The list has been pretty steady. The biggest individual item that is purchased is paper for copiers and art projects and things like that. So pricing for paper is down a little bit. So it's reflected in the overall request. It's a $700 reduction in the budget for this year. This is really a status quo operation. The individual who also is our central supply director does have several other hats that are worn that are of interest. They do run a program in conjunction with the Transition Academy for work experience for some of the kids there, that they'll go down to the warehouse and help stock and catalog and do the basic warehousing work of that type. Individual also takes care of all our fixed asset reporting and tracking, as well as running our um, auction system. So when there's, equipment, materials, furniture that nobody wants anymore, we'll dispose of them. He gave me a total that over the last 8 years or so of doing it, he's been able to recover about $110,000 of resources for the town over about 1,200 auctions. So he's a busy guy for doing that. So other than that, it's, just keeps on keeping on. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Central direction, which is right up behind it.
It's blue tab. Okay.
Blue.
This is the individuals from administration sitting at the table. It's Dr. Ron, myself, Steve, that are the primary individuals in the administrative or the central direction program, along with about 8 AFSCME support people and ATs, which provide a number of the administrative support things that our everyday activities. The HR department, the business office, the secretarial and program support for the curriculum area that are there. The number one key expense for the overall program is the frontline software, which is integral for our HR activities, attendance tracking, time keeping for all the employees who are hourly, a number of the credentialing things and professional development that support Steve's overall operation of HCD. So that's the one largest expenditure that we have in this area. We do acquire annual enrollment projections that assist in allowing Steve and Dr. Brummett and all the principals to design the right staffing levels for their buildings every year, as well as, with the course selection at the high school, they'll know which, sections have to be supplemented or which courses have to be supplemented because of excess sections or which ones are undersubscribed, so they can adjust the staffing to prevent, a significant number of individuals being denied the courses they want. We do have a weather service. We do pay for a rollover system support for several other software packages in the district for called Alio and Budget Sense. And those are, routine ongoing expenses every year. The, other expenditures that we have at times, we're buying W-2s, we buy checks, all the basic things to make a business office go, as well as any other customized forms that are necessary. And there's about 10 different memberships for the district that are paid for through this particular account. So I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Just the reduction in the non-cert salaries, is that just retirement reallocation? I know it's the same staffing level, so just
Non-cert salaries,
119.30.
okay, this will be, the administrative salary group, that administrative personnel that are, our salaries are reflected there on that line.
Yeah, so why's there a reduction of 200,000? I'm not sad about it.
Under non-certified, Lou, there's we go from 1.2 million.
One of them was the secretary we had
Yeah.
duplicated that we eliminated.
Okay.
That's part of that.
Mhm.
And, I think there's a grant support on that.
Part-time staff.
Oh, the part-time staff that we had several part-time slots that were held that were eliminated as part of our budget calculation for the first submission.
But we still have it in terms of like admin and non-cert, we still have the same staffing levels. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like building direction is next. It's a yellow tab immediately following where you were.
Okay. Okay, so this is the compilation of the 7 schools, and their principal's office and general administrative activities of the school, as well as the costs for the district-wide school security are in this program. Principals, we have principal, 3 assistants at the high school, principal and an assistant at the 2 middle schools, and just a principal at the elementary schools. Within the 18 AFSCME clerical and support staff around the building, for the main offices and, media centers that are there, our director of security and residency, and a number of part-time individuals who are assigned to these different buildings, the volunteer coordinators, cafeteria aides, 20 hall monitors at the high school to ensure there's, decorum in the hallways. That's there. General operating expenses, contracted services are, the big area here. This will have all the copier and laminator costs for the district, for annual copier contract. We do have the software Navigate 360, which is used extensively by the security group. The scholarship subscription does support their software for school security. Language Line is the translation service that is available by phone for meetings with parents who are not as proficient in English as would be necessary to be, able to communicate well in a meeting. So we'll arrange Language Line support for those meetings. The equipment had minor items here. We have potentially security cameras are done through here. We have some small equipment, playground requests, not the permanent built-in type stuff that you have for the major playscape. These are more, the little tykes and, that sort of generation of equipment that's here. And, some furniture for conference rooms as well. And you do have your graduation costs at year end for the rental of the Oakdale and the related services that are needed to make the day work. So, any questions on that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Blue under 597, it's a 10% increase, and under the 600 supplies, it's almost 20%. What's up there?
Okay. Well, the security officers have a uniform package that they get, and instead of 9, we have 10 now. So there's one more. So yeah. Okay. Right. On the 690 account, you said, right?
The one below. Supplies.
Yeah.
It goes from 73 to
Is your mic on?
goes from 73 Lou to 95.
Yeah, 73.
Give me 1 second to see what I can find.
Up about $20,000.
Yeah.
690 account, I'm sorry.
In this account, there is an item for $4,000 for some replacement office furniture. That would be a new request, not an ongoing aspect of what's in that account. We would have looks like there's just additional dollars for school-related activities that are there. So they have Spirit Week.
7,000 of it is the other supply 690 number 10.
The Myron
That's the
Kellogg.
biggest jump.
That's Myron Kellogg, 690 tax. Well, the items that they have Battle of the Books, couple $1,000 for intramurals and recess equipment, $4,000 for office supplies, replenish what's in their school store, and $5,000 for staff and student T-shirts. It comprises the 17.5. I would have to go back and compare it to last year to see what the variances are. Sure. I know it's in this. I don't know what's changed without looking at it more closely. Yeah, 690 account.
And the high school.
And the high school.
Thanks, Stuart.
And that's what the individual principals request.
That's correct.
With the details behind it. So yeah, maybe just also let us know if there's any, nice to have instead of, yeah, 1B, 1A,
Yes.
in there. And,
So under 690.
yeah. And then Mr. Halloran?
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm not sure if I missed it, but for the high school public relations increase of almost 10 grand. That'd be 542.
Yeah, it says freshman orientation and guest speakers. So is there a planned guest speaker that's more pricey?
Right, I would have to do the same thing of looking at it as a comparative to last year. There's maybe 12, 13 items of which I don't have really sense, oh, that's brand new and it's something different. So I'd have to look at it closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then just last, I think on new equipment, I would just ask if there's 1B, 1A on those ones. I know like some are like new chairs, it's a new conference chair, room furniture, new playground equipment, like obviously. But if it's a nice to have or a hold off or we really need it, just in this one.
Right.
So the 730 lines, just where I think this might be, it's 2 Reynolds, there's little increase, like they're little, but I just wanted to, it totals 10K, so I just wanted to. Thank you.
Right, at Green, they are looking for an all-season shed to go outside. Some kind of heavy-duty tall swing sets, and this is gonna be the plastic ones for the little kids. If they're one, I have a undefined recess equipment request for Anna Reynolds. And I'm sure that's for the courtyard that's there fulfilling what's not there. John Wallace is looking for new conference room chairs and some supplies. And then we have a $7,500 item for either replacing or refurbishing chairs that are in one of the career tech classrooms at the high school. That, you know, the pistons are all getting worn out. We may be able to sustain it. The seats themselves are really good, but needs pistons. So this probably be what we end up doing on that.
Work quick with it. Well, this is great. Thanks.
Just a quick question on some of those. There's no safety issues with any of those things if they were to be, like you said, stuff we can maybe hold off on or fix in-house? Is there any safety
Oh, for like
concerns?
pistons, yeah, we'd have to just order them.
Okay,
Yeah,
but nothing
yeah.
safety-wise we have to be concerned about or anything like that?
If I'm understanding it correctly, though, for that 730 new equipment category, what was proposed versus what was asked? So only 14,000 of that is proposed, and it seems like the only actual cuts in that list are the fire file cabinet and the blind spot cameras, correct? The rest of those items would go forward?
Hang on one second.
Yeah, anything that's above that cut
Right. yeah,
row is in the budget.
Most of the 45,000 was the camera equipment. That will be going to the board CIP account. So it's transferring it there. If I remember correctly, it was about 37,000 of cameras.
Correct.
The rest, the file cabinet, that was a request from the guidance department for keeping student transcripts long-term and fire retardant. You know, we are investigating just a one of those online repositories to just digitize all of it and keep it online permanently instead of having just more stuff.
So thank you, Brittany, for bringing that up because clarifying, we are still getting blind spot cameras or proposing that still in.
Yes, that is in the capital budget, in the board CIP, which basically we kind of fund with other things. So that should go forward. Yes.
Thank you.
The Board of Education.
Okay. Mhm. Purple tab. Okay, the expenses here are supporting, board administration and board, responsibilities. So the, 300 account line for consultants is all legal fees, for the district. You know, that's negotiations, special ed litigation, that's here, as well as, a number of opportunities for advisory, meetings and, guidance on, you know, new laws and regulations that are promulgated by the state. So that's a minor increase for this year. Public relations activities for the group, you know, there's three things: the townwide art show, teacher of the year, or retiree reception, and the permanent art collection are supported. Yeah. Magnet school tuitions, you'll see on the 560 line is a zero now. That's because of the understanding that was developed last year with budget, where that responsibility is being handed off to the town to pay those bills. You know, so this is the first year they're paying for that. So next year it should be a zero as well. It'll be paid through one of two means, either as an offset to the town's educational cost sharing grant, or they would be paying direct. So the overall, you know, approximate value of this year's activity is in the low 400,000s for tuition. But that, we had a great benefit this year with the state passing pricing limits on what the magnet schools could charge, other than 58% of what last year's bill was. So the bills are a bit artificially low. And that may or may not be continued into next year. So there could be, you know, major hikes in the individual magnet school tuitions next year. So that has not been announced yet as far as what they're doing. Conferences are just minimal activities during the year, you know, Cape Conference primarily. And, you know, the Children's Museum sponsorships for both the West Harvard Children's Museum and the Connecticut Science Center in Hartford. Contract services is primarily the costs associated with the SRO on the town side. And then what else we have there? Yeah, we have the correct Cape Policy Service that we.
Well, I think that's.
Shipment now. That should be changed.
I didn't do this page, so I'm not guilty. I'm not the one who edited it.
Just wanted to make sure my policy committee realized. that we-
Understands.
Yeah. All right. And some graphic services when necessary. Okay. Office supplies are just the things we can't get through our own central supply operation. And, you know, there's dues and memberships that the district belongs to, as well as for, you know, several, you know, like a personnel group, a business office group, superintendent's group that are here.
Go ahead.
Lou, just a question, because you brought it up on the magnet school. There's no like regulation on if they can upcharge. Is there any like regulation or cap that they can change that amount every year, or is it
Well,
like
this
individual?
is a new thing that came in this year,
Yeah.
where they said that all they could charge is 58% of what they had been charging.
Mhm.
Don't know if that's gonna be continued. Maybe
Okay.
it'll just be 58% of last year. Maybe they'll relax it to, you know, you can charge 70% of the last fixture. We just don't know
But there's
anything.
no regulation saying they can or can't do X or Y amount. They can just,
Oh, yeah, the state,
No,
you
there
know, the
is.
max,
There-
yeah, that's, they can't.
there is.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And
Yes. And we do know that that discounted rate will continue into next year. That was part of legislation.
Right.
Beyond next year is another
That was my,
matter.
like, I was like, I thought there was legislation on that
There
specific.
is. I mean,
Okay.
that was a nice break for public schools. As Lou said, it's now something that this goes to the town and it'll be shaved off their ECS. But, you know, but they have a mandated rate that the state sets through the grants. So
But that can change
it can go
annually.
up or down,
Okay,
sure.
that's
Well,
where-
most likely up. Now, the big difference here is the state is paying a portion of those magnet schools now when they never did
Right,
before.
exactly.
How long that continues.
That's
is-
more of what I'm getting at. I was like, so it's a volatile and
can
variable
be
cost
volatile.
that we can't.
Mhm.
that's something we advocate for with.
Yeah.
We certainly do.
Just so
Yes.
public knows, like, we can't predict or rely on that as a budgeting
But it was a win to have the state cover what they've done the past
2 years?
this year, and then
Yeah.
into next year it's legislated.
It's just something we can't rely on when we're doing this budget science to be able to then do it. So
Yeah, next
this
year,
is
no.
Next year,
the
no.
art that is blind. Cool.
I'll turn it on.
Good, thank you.
I thought we were splitting the cost of the SRO program with the town. How come we're showing 127,000 for one officer?
That is the split cost. I'm not sure of the exact proportion, but there are very heavy insurance charges and other costs for the officer and training of equipment.
You're telling me it's $254,000 a year to have an SRO?
I can't tell you that, but I know what we've been getting charged this amount of money for a number of years and this $110,000 to $130,000 range.
We need to talk to Chief Perry.
Well, I would say it's certainly not a 50-50 split because Officer Bugie is with us throughout the entire school year. So the split may be what he does in the summer. And then as Lou said, there are a lot of benefits and fees that we pay a portion of.
We're at least 2/3.
I would say at least 2/3 is a fair estimate, yes.
For the Children's Museum, can you just, let us know how many students are able to take advantage of that? So I'm assuming it's for field trips and just, is it?
It's a curricular item, and I know Kristen just stepped away, but yes, it is part of the field trip, so it's something that we provide. It's not, we don't charge for that.
We don't charge the families?
We do not.
Okay.
Mm-mm. That is a guaranteed part of their curriculum. I'd have to check with either Kristen or Bev as to which grade levels go, but, oh, please.
For the Connecticut Science Center, it's grades 3, 5, and 7.
Okay.
And for the Children's Museum, it's K through 4.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just talk to them today.
Very timely.
Okay, so a lot of our students are taking advantage and getting those. Okay, perfect.
Yes, we're out of money at the Connecticut Museum already.
It's already spent.
Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions? No? Okay. Oh, and this is we can just fix the type. It's just a typo, right? The CABE policy, it really should have been, but the money is correct. Okay.
Okay, transportation, Lou.
Okay, that is the next brown tab. I counted as number 4 in my book, so fourth brown tab. Okay. All right. In this our transportation operations is a combination of union drivers and non-union, along with 2 maintainers, the director, the operations coordinator, and the part-time dispatcher clerk who works for them. So the nature of participation in the union is they have to drive a 3-tier run every day, which will give them 20 hours or more of guaranteed work, which makes them eligible to be in the union. We have 22 union drivers, 2 mechanics that are in ASME. With the expansion of services, especially at the preschool level and special ed support that we're doing, in the last couple of years, we've bumped up from 41 runs a day to 48 at the current time. So all of that requires us to rely on non-union drivers to pick up the slack, because those aren't, what we call a regular assignment. They're a little bit here, a little bit there. So we're piecing together runs and work schedules for people based on the needs of the student population, the families in town. So that's gone very well, but it's very challenging as far as, being able to, staff enough drivers. Talked to Dean 2 days ago, and, it's just, asking him questions. So my knowledge was kind of updated on this. And you say, yeah, right now we're kind of averaging 2 a day out. Called him yesterday, there's 10 out today. So he was running around, all kinds of, yeah, right. So, those kind of, never know when the next problem is lurking around the corner for you. So, so that is the staffing profile. We have 32 non-union drivers at this point, And if we could hire another 3 or 4 more, we would, just to have the flexibility on the bench. So the repair account is a combination of, all the work that's done at DACO, as well as some other areas we use, like we'll send buses for oil changes to other places because it's more convenient than, bringing it to DACO, waiting a day and a half for the bus to come back just for an oil change. So we've got several vendors to, supplement around the primary work at DACO that's here. And that covers, all 75 vehicles in the fleet. Plus there's about another 20 vehicles that are not student transportation related that are our responsibility as a district, the maintenance vehicles that are around the security guards' cars, a couple of tag-along pieces of trailers for carting equipment and things around town to the different schools that are here. So the contracted service part that we have will be, driver training and drug testing that's here. We do have a routing software that we use called Transfinder, which is very effective, as well as picking up the cost for all of the special ed transportation. These dollars get folded into the excess cost request at the end of the year and merged with what's in the special ed budget. And they have to do what they call, you see DVR, what's that? That's a driver vehicle inspection report. So every day before the bus hits the road, a DVR has to be filled out by a bus driver who's going to be driving it that day, and they look for defects. Is the, turn signals working? Is the swing arm operational? Something cracked or broken? Is a light out? All these little things that could potentially interfere with successful operation of the bus. So that type of assessment is done every day before the bus goes out of the yard. Fuel oil, auto parts, gasoline, these are all routine things for the district. Fuel oil has been steady this year on cost. It hasn't really increased. We have driven more because we have more runs and stuff, but the cost of gas has not been problematic at this point. The supplies in the other supplies, parts, and the 625 auto parts and suppliers are what are typically used by the 2 mechanics who work for us. Small stuff we can do ourselves here, but the shop is not outfit with the heavy duty hydraulic lifts to be able to hoist the bus up where you can stand underneath it. The safety issues that go with that, as well as the management of any fuels and spills. You have a bus that's leaking that comes in. We don't have a, management system in the garage to contain those issues. So all that work goes outside. What we can do is what we can reach and what's not leaking, kind of simply put. So the request overall outside of the salaries is $125,000 increase. Some of that is the fuel is a minimal increase, some increased needs in tires and supplies, and about $70,000 in special ed transportation costs. And that kind of, goes in lockstep with what's happening in the special ed program. Any questions here?
Good. Just a question on the tires, because that's like a bigger
They're
one.
big.
Can we attribute it to
I'm sorry.
is there any kind of like attribute to just a general cost, but also is there maybe some attributed to the lack of paving on the buses or for the, Garfield
The
Street?
gravel lot?
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't
Okay.
be a factor.
So it's just general tires.
Wear and tear on it.
Okay. Tires just cost more this.
5 miles, a lot of miles on it.
Yeah.
Big and expensive, so.
Okay. Insurance.
Insurance, okay. The general insurance category are the liability insurance elements for the town. And this is done through a joint committee with the town called the Standing Insurance Committee. We have been a long-standing customer of KERMA, which is the special risk management organization, which functions as an insurance company, where their sole customer base are municipalities, can be state agencies, there can be water districts, fire districts, any sort of subdivision of a municipality that may have the need to have, insurance coverage for different things. They provide general liability, auto coverage, workman's comp, property damage. Last couple of years, they've gotten really big in the cybersecurity insurance for the district. And they do a really good job at doing that. And the program that the town has with them, is very effective. They have what's called a retro program. So they pay minimum money up front to get bind coverage. And then they'll settle up on claims year by year afterwards. So as claims mature or settled, they either, can really suppress what future costs are and how it's actuarially rated. So we had really good success with them for being able to put together a, solid program in very challenging insurance times. If you can just think of the, number of disasters and big events that have happened here and everywhere around the nation. All these things are turning into multi-million and multi-billion-dollar hits. So we've been able to be very well insulated here. Couple percent increase is, could be up, once the final numbers come in June, it may drop off a couple points, but we don't get a true number from them until early part of June each year when they're binding coverage for the next year.
That's affected by the number of claims, correct?
Yep. And severity is both frequency and severity.
Question, we've been digging in this on policy, so this is why it's coming up. We thought we weren't liable for booster club accounts, booster club activities. It's
Yes.
saying,
Okay. We do provide
Yeah, you
insurance. Did you plant that one? No. The booster clubs are a specific carve out from our general liability policy. So since these are unaffiliated groups, there's no real long-term leader of the group that sponsors, transitions with the kids every year. We have made the decision to cover the activities of the booster club under policies purchased by us. That's through an outfit in Dallas, Texas. And the acronym is AIM, AIM. And it's activities, insurance, management or something like that. And very, unrecognizable name that they have. But the coverage is, manageable. They have $1 million general liability coverage. And it's only about $250 a year per club. We have 22 clubs that we run a policy for right now.
okay, so
Not clubs,
booster clubs. Yeah, okay, because we were thinking we had no liability as a board, because if there's financial mismanagement stuff, their accounts aren't in our board budget, correct?
Yes, right.
So they're separate entities.
They're covered, right? If anything happens there, it's a separate claim. And it's all pool rated, so there's not going to be any impact on future rates.
Okay.
Just whether, it's a covered incident that happens.
So it's part of our overall policy already, like we get it regardless?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There's not like an umbrella policy with them, is there? Or is it just your standard for booster clubs? Does it?
Yeah, there's standard. You can buy a couple riders on it if you feel for some reason they have more coverage or something. A lot of times, one of the trends out there is that a community will try to have one universal booster club for everybody, and everybody's like a subgroup of the master club. So the master club would want to have a bigger liability basis because they have a lot more people impacting one policy. Here we have 22 separate policies, so what happens in one doesn't affect the other 21 policies.
So it sounds like there's some policy discussion on that. I can just being on a booster club, like if we host a car wash, the kids are doing something, it's a booster activity. If anything happened, they would be covered. But like PTOs, they carry their own insurance because it's an organization that is more steady. Like the officers are there 2 years and.
Yeah, this was one of our big things as being on a booster club for my sister when things were happening and there was, let's just say, potential questions about where money was and those kinds of things that happened. And so we were like, we as a board don't want to take on that liability in terms of if there is financial mismanagement or those kinds of things, we're not going to be legally liable for any of those things. But it was a question because it comes up in a lot of our policies regarding fundraising activities. And there's usually separate carves outs for PTO PAC and booster club. And we were like, and I'll just say, my mom being a booster club president and all these kinds of things, they're separate accounts and all these things. So we wanted to keep it as separate as possible, but I understand if that's the only kind of crossover. It is one of those things where it's parent to parent every year and wherever it goes. And sometimes the sport, there's like 5 people running it. So just having that clarity so we can update our policies as well would be helpful.
Brittany, did I adequately answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
We appreciate the work that you're doing to update policies
Yes, we do.
appropriately.
All right, moving to other salaries, blue tab next, next.
Okay. Okay. There's a whole roster of different things that are budgeted in this area because incomplete and imperfect information is what's available during the original startup. We don't know who is going to advance with the degree change and what program they're in. Retirement increment decisions don't have to be made till October 31st in the district. So our budgets are going to be finished in April. So many things, the decisions that impact distribution occur well after, these estimates are settled. So the big things we have in here are the cost of substitute teachers. And at this point, our total for substitute teachers is in the $600,000 range, per year. And then you have your long-term subs. Degree changes we carry right now at $100,000 based on the profile of which teachers are potentially able to advance for the next academic year and get a raise for that. We do, have a small allowance of $30,000 to facilitate the rough edges on high school scheduling where the sections don't line up and we have to figure out how to add 1 or 2 extra sections of coverage to facilitate what class selection calls for. That's here. We do have payment in lieu for insurance packages that are people opt out of for the board policy or the town policy and get it elsewhere. And they are given an incentive payment for that. We carry some summer school teacher costs in this. We have the team reader and team mentor program gets paid out of here. We have some special assignment costs that are here, as well as our promotional testing specialists that whenever there's positions that are open that need to have testing and evaluation done after hours, we do have somebody who comes in and handles that for us. So the whole grouping of all this fun stuff is about $1.2 million. And what happens is a good portion of this will end up being reallocated when we do the salary transfers in December each year. Then we'll know exactly how things worked out with resignations, new hires, where they're located, what step they're on. So all that gets kind of rolled into that big bundle, and you'll see that transfer occur, whenever your December meeting is scheduled each year. With that, there's no meaningful change in the scope. Just obviously the price of substitutes has gone up, because we're competing for those just like every other person working in the district. Any questions? Yeah, so you just, Amy needs to.
You have a question?
Yes.
Do you have a question? You can just turn your mic on.
So my question is, under the administrative salaries,
Mhm.
you have a figure for that, how much that costs?
Make sure we're looking at the right one here.
And a follow-up, administrator's chief of innovation strategy and culture for equity. Who is that chief?
Yes. 1 second.
That's Dr. Hairston.
I can answer that. Dr. Hairston.
Dr. who?
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Hairston.
How do you spell that?
Hairston.
And, what's Dr. Hairston's salary?
It's listed at the bottom under grant allocations, $161,000.
It doesn't include benefits, right?
I don't know if that includes benefits.
That does not.
Ms. Weaver, did you have, he's still going, I think.
So the administrative special projects, do we know what those are?
That is earmarked for staff transitions where we have to have coverage or support to facilitate certain positions being changing of employment for the, high important positions where it's not a cold start for the next person coming in.
And Dr. Hairston, what exactly does he do?
Sorry?
Dr. Hairston, what exactly does he do for $161,000?
That's a long list, but I can say that he's an overseeing our SEL work, our discipline work. He's helping make sure our practices are equitable. He provides a lot of training for the district, consults with teachers, coaches. I don't know if I mentioned professional development, but he's overseeing professional development on Friday for that particular area. Does training for administrators, but a lot of, I would say, coaching of administrators, teachers, coaches on equitable practices. He helps us write protocols for that, and he works with some outside entities to give us the latest, what we should be doing to provide equitable training to our staff. So it's a multitude of issues, but that's just kind of a nutshell.
How long has that position been, in the, or at the school?
4 years. It's been grant funded, I think, all of the time. We started with ESSER funding, and then reassigned it to open choice funding. And he meets with students as well. I didn't mention that, or collaborates with students, parents, community members. That's an integral part of our strategic planning process. So it's a very busy, very, very busy position.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Weaver.
I'm curious, Lou, on the daily substitutes, you said, is it daily substitutes at 600,000 or all subs? That's like 600.
It's a variety.
Of subs, okay.
Continuous subs, where we, somebody who doesn't make the commitment of a long-term sub,
Correct.
you need somebody for 6 weeks, to cover someone for surgical absence or maternity leaves, things like that. So we have, the whole gamut of anything.
That's all
less
in
than-
that figure?
anything less than an LTS.
Curious what the increase was over kind of, obviously the daily rates are going up, the hourly, like all of everything going up to find more subs. But would just be,
He probably knows the daily rates and stuff off the
Yeah.
top of your head.
no, just curious, like overall that figure going up from
In
last
dollars,
year.
so it's probably,
Yeah.
$120,000 increase in the last 3 years, just for. subs.
Just for subs.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, employee benefits, yellow tab.
Okay. Major aspects of the program are the Anthem Health Insurance Program, along with related alternate packages for dental insurance through Cigna. We have 3 different pension contributions that are made out of the program. One is for the town's the AT Popular Work Group that's here. Another one that's for the AFSCME 2930 employees. Those are all the traditional defined benefit programs where, you work your number of years, you get 2% a year for 35 years of service, and you'll walk away from the job at your retirement with 70% of your high 3-year average of your salary. The fourth one, and there's several subsets to it, is with Mission Square, which used to be ICMA. That is our defined contribution program. So both the AFSCME pension and the AT pension have been closed to new members for over 20 years now. So more and more people are coming in. Everybody who comes in now goes to the defined contribution program. Where you are paying the actuarial calculated value for the defined benefit program. So that's getting more skewed where it's much higher proportionally because we have no new members to offset the costs. You know, eventually that'll kind of top off and then start dissipating. But it's not, you know, gigantic numbers, but it's just if most pensions are increasing at 5%, we're probably going 8 to 12. But it's not, one of them is $1.5 million, the other's 150,000 for annual contribution. So it's not a staggering amount of money. We do have significant money that goes to FICA and Medicare that's paid through the program. And on the medical insurance side of the program, you know, our preliminary rating from Lockton for the upcoming year is $12,484,000, you know, for our pool of our liability. We do get, you know, employee copay offsets to that. And then we do have to pay the high deductible contribution for all the employees who participate. Then the last ones are just the term life insurance and disability policies that employees have. So that speaks to 97-98% of the expenses. Then we have, you know, several smaller things, you know, the EAP program for the district. We have, you know, some reimbursements per union contracts for shoes, for, you know, cell phone and mileage, things like that that go through here. So that's kind of the whole span of the program. As I was looking at this for the last couple of days, you know, our rating for next year, you know, for 25-26 on the Anthem plan is okay right now. It's 6.2%. That translates into over $720,000 of new costs for the rating, but that's a heck of a lot better than what the town's facing, which is a 24% or some ungodly number on there. And that's all just driven on the claims history that has occurred. So we're in okay shape. If we have another couple good months, we may be able to get additional relief because we always ask the agent of record to recompute right before budget's finalized in April to see if there's opportunities available to us there. So I don't think we really have any negative risk at this point because we haven't really been made aware of any issues. But if we have another, you know, 6-8 weeks or chugging along through the end of March and not have any major, you know, catastrophic claims, we should do better than what we're having right now. So, you know, the number is, you know, large in nature, $1 million, but there's 4 or 5 big drivers that are all statutory or contract related. So there's no real wiggle room in being able to do something different here. Any questions?
Okay. Sorry, just there's nothing that's changed with the federal legislation on, I know it's more on the teacher side, correct? On like they can, in terms of the social security stuff. It
Federal
doesn't
legislation or state?
Correct. Federal on their ability to get social security and that kind of stuff. It doesn't impact.
That's when they're employed
Oh,
outside
sorry.
of the school system.
Okay. So I'm saying none of the federal legislation and there's likely, and anything on the docket for education that would impact these. I don't think so, but just always curious. I feel like that's not an area that gets looked at. Because I know at the state, we're paying a ton more into our pensions. Bias because I work at the treasurer's office, but just curious if there was any wiggle, there really is no wiggle room we can negotiate or anything like that. It's just how it is.
We have to definitely, whatever the town tells us to pay, or
It's just always agent of record.
it's a straight through. We have no say in the matter. In fact, we're required to do it or we're not in compliance with our agreement. But no, I don't anticipate any federal issues impacting us locally with insurance.
Go ahead.
2 quick questions. The state teacher's pension is funded by the state. Do they pay into the health fund too, like regular state employees do? There's a
Well, they're on our
3%,
medical-
4%. Do the teachers pay that as well? I'm just curious.
A typical teacher deduction is 7% to the pension benefit when they retire, and 1.25% goes toward their health insurance program.
Okay, so they're paying something. Okay.
Right. And that's real, you know, for teachers after 1984, all had to move to Medicare when they turned 65. So that for new teachers, if they retire at 60, the benefits with the subsidy from the state, which I think is still $100 a month per person that's covered, is used to offset the cost of buying COBRA coverage from their last employee Board of Ed. For individuals who never paid into the Medicare system, they can stay on for the rest of their lives, on the state or on our program with the state subsidy that comes back to the district to subsidize their cost.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2. What would be the dollar figure if we offered our 30 paras benefits? I never hear a number. I always hear that we're the only one that doesn't. Do you guys have a guess?
Well, to offer a reasonably competitive high deductible plan with good coverage, that's not a $10,000 deductible because nobody will be to take it, right? We have, really the same parameters of our plan here. You're looking at about $12,000 for a single employee.
360 or more here. 360,000 for 30.
Yeah, and you have to just, how many of them, how many people are you trying to cover? We were estimating, we have 100.
We have over 150 paras, so we've estimated that at over 2 million
20 grand
under
a head
previous
is-
estimates.
Yeah, at least, at that point.
Thank you.
So, okay. And I did forget one of my favorite points I had on my notes here, but I didn't say it yet, is that wonderful new Connecticut's, sick pay mandate, and how much torment it's unleashed on the workforce here, trying to keep up with it. But hopefully they'll, see the error of their ways and make some adjustments, before the legislative session is over this year, because this has not been a well-crafted piece of legislation. Look at that one.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing with legislation. I was like, was this in the paid sick leave was kind of baked into this as well?
The paid sick leave, we even had some provisions for some of the employees
Yeah,
before
right.
in
and this
trying to
is-
give them some sick days. This supersedes that as far as the minimums that are there.
Mhm.
And it also wreaks havoc with a very, unfriendly set of rules that go for implementation of those benefits.
Right. And is that accounted as a factor into the actuarial for the agent of record? Like, are they
It
accounted
had
for that?
nothing to do with that, no.
It's in a different, I think it's in
No.
a different,
But I'm just saying like the actuarial
The actuaries just do the pension liability
liability, right?
as well as the long-term health insurance liability for the retiree workforce.
So not a covariate in that calculation. Okay.
That's just a mandate, plain and simple unfunded mandate.
does do they, for the sick pay mandate, are they eligible for payout if they don't use their sick
No.
days?
No.
Okay, so it's use it or lose it.
Right, but they will take the day off.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
All right, Lou, bringing up the last item, community service,
Our favorite program, community service. So
the small item.
the advent of this program really goes back to just basic accounting years and years ago. When the state says, we know school facilities and equipment, everything else are not always used by the school. The town, utilizes the gyms for basketball games and park and rec activities. Buildings are used for other community purposes that are here. So they had the expectation that you have to carve out some of your expenses to represent, what support you gave to non-school related activities that were in your facilities and are part of your budget. So it just becomes a deduction from the final, educational cost sharing grant that whatever dollars are involved don't get counted toward the ECS calculation. It's not a lot of money, not a big deal. So what happens is when we rent the building to outside groups, many times the custodian, it has to be part of the deal because we're not going to let them come in, make a mess of the place, and then we got to clean it up the next morning after everybody's gone. That becomes part of their bill. And the cost of that custodian working, gets charged off as a community service event. Then we, put aside some allocations of, just the use of the building between, electricity and natural gas, which would be your heating and lighting for the facility for the time they use it. So the revenues generated from this go to your Board of Ed CIP account, which you can recycle in the following year. We absorb the cost to support those activities this year, but it just becomes an exclusion for the final year-end calculations. Okay. In addition, what we've added in the last year is our streaming activities, where we do all kinds of stuff for outside groups as well as for, some things for the district that are, beyond the classroom. So we have about $13,000 of pay, casual pay for the kids that come in, and we'll run the soundboard and the lighting board for church services that are renting the building, or if they're out filming an event for some purpose that they get an assignment for. So that's kind of what we have going here. So the increase in wage costs is just because of the contract rates, and everything else is just status quo.
Ms. Beatrice?
I just have a quick question for you on the audiovisual fees at the high school for $17,000, and it was zero this year. Is that like you're saying, a church group or something that we have to provide?
Yeah, they should all be on the same line. That $14,000 should line up with the 17 too. You always need to fix that. But it's been a very popular activity with the kids. They love doing that stuff. Go out and, film football games, or go out and, film the parade on Memorial Day, whatever they get. Are you guys tired of me yet?
Yeah, you're cut off.
You're done. All right, so I'll turn it back over to board chair about next steps relative to the budget.
Yep, so we got through all the programs. If there are still questions, feel free to email myself and Dr. Brummett. And our meeting for tomorrow was canceled because we figured we'd get through everything today, which we did. So tomorrow's off. We're meeting next Wednesday, where we will adopt the budget as our own. So right now it's superintendent's budget. We'll adopt it as our own, and then that's when we can start adjusting as we see fit. So we do already have a few things that we can adjust, but between now and then, if anything comes up or anything changes, Dr. Brummett and team will let us know, and again, questions can be sent. Did I miss anything?
No, I have a laundry list of questions that my team and I will be working on between now and next week, and I'll update them in the PowerPoint so that the board can refer to that, and just as you said, we can field questions in the meantime as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. Lou, you had the show today mostly. Okay, so moving on to public participation. If there's anyone online, raise your hand. I don't think there is. And remarks by board members. Go ahead, Brittany.
I'll email the one question I have, but the other one, on the joint presentation, slide 5, the second bullet that talked about building thinking classrooms with math instruction and how it's impacted math achievement at the middle school level. Wasn't there a link for the data? Because I don't see one anymore. And I know last night I was trying to access it and I didn't see it.
I'm in the process of updating it because we had some more current data from our district data team, so I'll reinsert that.
Motion to adjourn? Oh my God.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, if anybody wants it.
Would love it, thank you.
Aye. Oh, yeah, all in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. It's 9:41 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.